every stranger, sister, and brother. Lord, have mercy. Transcend comfort in our every need. Help us neither scorn nor death to heed, that we may not falter nor courage fail us when the foe shall taunt and assail us. Lord, have mercy. Shine in our hearts, O Spirit, precious light. Teach us, Jesus Christ, to know our right, that we may abide in the Lord who bought us, till our true home he has brought us. Lord, have mercy. And for this food we are about to receive, come, Lord Jesus, be our guest, and let thy gifts to us be blessed. Amen.
So when you're finished, just go ahead and get in the line, please. The salads will be out shortly. Matter of fact, right now, sir.
And they're not.
Talk to you later.
Hi, my name is Jim McCarthy. I'm the Booster Club president. I'll be the master of ceremonies. It's a nice honor for me today. As the Booster Club president, I've done a pretty good job. I've been fortunate enough to work with coaches John, SPEZIA, Mary Haney, Terry Hill, and of course the athletic director and the golf coach, Joe Springer. Over the past year, we've had the pleasure to EMCEE a golf outing last summer. For those of you who were there, obviously Coach Gene Katie from Purdue was there, and that was a thrill for me as well as a good time. This year we're working on another one to be announced, hopefully someone that could match Mr. Katie, although that'll be a tough act to follow. I'd also like to mention, on Tuesday the 25th, at 8 o'clock, for those of you that aren't familiar, we'll host the Big Ten All-Star game out at Mary Miller. The team will feature Kenny Ballard, Lowell Hamilton, former Illini who's at Evansville, Scott Hafner, and of course the Big Ten Player of the Year, Jay Edwards. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody out there. Tickets are $6 for general admission, $20. That's a post-game reception with the players to be held immediately after the game at the Sheraton. This afternoon, the program will include Coach Dick Nagy, the top assistant at the University of Illinois. And I think it's safe for all of us to say that Illinois would not have been a Final Four team without Mr. Nagy's help and assistance from Coach Henson. But I'll let John SPEZIA take care of the rest of the introduction for that. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce Coach for DACC that's won 45 games in the last 2 seasons, and that's Coach John SPEZIA.
Thanks, Jim. Hope everybody had enough to eat. We really appreciate the beef house. They've had super service. The food has been excellent. Just a quality place to go to. I know that Bob Wright and staff has done a great job. I would happen to read a Dear Abby article. I wanted to share it with you. It's kind of an interesting one. It has to do with athletics and so forth. It says, Dear Abby, my wife has just been granted custody of our 5 children. Because I deserve it. My mother has been confined to an insane asylum since I was 4 years old. I have 2 brothers, one who is the basketball coach at Indiana University, and the other is sentenced to be executed. My father is a dope peddler, and 2 sisters are prostitutes. I recently met a fine girl who was released from prison after serving a sentence for smuggling her illegitimate child. I love her very much and want to marry her. My problem is, should I tell her about my brother who is the basketball coach in Indiana University? I fail to see the, this is dear and decided, I fail to see the problem. In the sound of your letter, your fiancé and your entire family must be graduates of Indiana University. With that, I'd like to introduce the basketball coach at the University of Illinois. He's been there 10 years. The University of Illinois has been in 10 postseason tournaments since he's been there. He was a player for Coach Henson at Hardin Simmons University, an assistant at Hardin Simmons, and went to Barton County Community College, so he knows what community college basketball is about. He was at East Central Missouri, and then went to the University of Illinois. He's run the very successful University of Illinois basketball camps. He is the top assistant at the University of Illinois, and as Jim related, that's why the University of Illinois is where it is. I know Dick Nagy personally. It's been a friendship, a long one. He's helped me here since the time I've been here the last 7 years. And I think he deserves probably a standing ovation for what he's done in the University of Illinois. Thank you. I heard Lou speak the other day, and I know the only reason he got up was to get rid of some of that dinner, and that doesn't bother me at all. There's nothing worse than having a great dinner on a beautiful day, and you have to sit and listen to a guy speak, or a gal, or anybody. So I promise I won't take a lot of time. First, I want to thank John and those responsible for having me, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I speak at several of these, and I always enjoy it. I did have 9 years at community college level, so I do have an idea of what community college athletics and community colleges are all about. I spent 7 years in Kansas and a couple of years in Missouri. As a matter of fact, those of you that have lived in this community a long time, and I can see there are some people out here that have been on this earth a while. I don't know if you've been in this community a while. My first year in Barton County in Kansas, my first recruit was from Danville, Illinois. So I'm going to mention his name, some of you might remember. Tom Klein. Anybody remember Tom Klein? Sure. Well, Tom Klein went to Barton County, and as a matter of fact, his Tom's in Springfield now. I haven't seen Tom in a while. Are Tom's folks still? Okay. But anyway, so I was in Danville on Easter Sunday in 1969, I think it was. And it was the first time I'd ever been in Danville, Illinois. It seems funny, I mean, you know, because you think, well, I wonder if I'll ever get back here again. Of course, since that time, I've been back several times. So I do understand about community college athletics, as John said. My relationship to John goes back several years. One of the first duties that I had when I came to Illinois, Lou just looked at me and he said, here, you run the camp. And with not a lot of explanation about what to do, just run the camp. I said, okay, I'll run it, do the best job I can. Well, since that time, we've been very fortunate to have good staff, and John was one of the fellows that I met through the camp that I got to know real well. And one of the things that I liked about him initially was that he was a very hard worker, and he didn't need a lot of accolades. All I asked was for a chance. He did a great job, and we struck up a friendship, and we've been friends ever since. And now today, I guess we have cross country. John said cross country, golf, and men and women's basketball. Now, for you fellas, is it cross country is still all men, or do we have some women? Both, okay. For you cross country runners, I've never run cross country, and I don't know anything about it other than I know you have to be very courageous to do it. Because anybody that's going to go out there and run the distances that you folks have to run without a lot of times public support, you know, basketball and football, we get a lot of public support, and so on. It's a little bit easy because people are always telling you you're doing a great job. Cross country has got to be one of the toughest, if not the toughest athletic events that I know of, for several reasons. That's one of them. So now the only thing I've ever done in cross country was stand at the finish line when I was an athletic director at Barton County and hand out those deals as you come in. So that's the only thing I know about it. How could I know it's tough? Now golf, I'm not going to talk about golf, because if you've ever seen me golf, you would really get a kick out of it. There's a guy that I was with this week that said he golfed 150-something was his score. So I've invited him down because he's probably the only guy that I've ever met that I got a shot at beating him. So I know golf is a tough sport. I was listening to ESPN today. What was the fellow's name that missed the putt? Scott Hope. And can you believe in ESPN they spent a half an hour, these experts spent a half an hour talking about how the guy choked. All these experts, they sat there for half an hour because they get paid for this, they don't have anything else to do, and they spent a half an hour talking about how that guy choked. But they didn't have to pick up that putter with what was on the line. But anyway, so I know golf is a tough sport. Now, men's and women's basketball, I know a little bit about. Women's basketball, I must confess that I used to be a skeptic. I said used to be. Because when I was in Kansas coaching, I had an opportunity to coach at a women's basketball camp. And I was a little bit skeptical because I really didn't know how to handle it. So I coached there, and it was one of the greatest experiences I ever had because I found out what I should have known anyway, that women are just as competitive as men. They play just as hard. They want to win just as badly. And the only difference is we're size. And there weren't a lot of 360 dunks, things of that nature. But as
women's athletics and women's basketball in particular. Let me say a few things about Illinois' team this season. I won't spend a lot of time talking about it because you've already, you know about it, and you're not here to hear about Illinois' season, but let me say a few things. First of all, at one time this year, if you recall, and if you happen to be an Illinois fan, you know we were ranked #1 in the nation, and we were 17-0. Now, for me personally, that was the greatest thrill for me that I ever had. I couldn't believe it. I was like a little kid. You know, people were running around saying it's not that big a deal. Well, it was a big deal. Just the fact that you were on a team that was selected #1. Doesn't mean maybe you're the best team, but at that time people thought you were. And I've got a lot of articles and things that I want to say from that, but that was a tremendous honor. And we were 17-0 at the time. And I remember coming back from Hawaii, and we were like, 12-0. And Lou at the time was really getting nervous because everybody's talking about how good we were. Well, if you're a head coach, you don't want people talking about how good you are because that puts pressure on you. So we came back and had a big meeting, and he was worried about how the assistants were handling this. In other words, are you guys playing it down in the community? Make sure you don't, talk too much about the team. So he asked me, he said, now Dick, he said, do you really think, we were ranked 3rd at the time, he said, do you really think we're the 3rd best team in the country? And I said, Coach, we're at least that good. I think we're better than that. And he got mad at hell at me. But I said all along, or I thought all along, that this was probably the best team that I've ever been associated with. And of course, obviously, it turned out to be that way. We finished 31-5, and I don't know, I didn't see the final rankings. I think we finished 3rd. And a lot of that's based on how you finish in the Final Four. As you know, we had a Final Four appearance. The greatest thing about the Final Four appearance for me personally, I don't know how you would have handled it. I never thought I'd ever be there, and I happened to be lucky enough to be there, was the fact that I got to share it with my son, who was a graduate assistant in Illinois, and he happened to be with me. And that's, but as I look back over this, and these are the things I want to mention today, hey, the greatest thing about the Final Four for me, I was sharing it with my son. I remember walking out that day to play Michigan, and we were in this, the big dome, and I really didn't know what it would feel like, and it was really a letdown for me, because to me it was just another ball game. That may sound crazy to you, but really, actually, that's what it was, just another ball game. And but it was a little bit of a letdown. Qualities that made this team successful. You've heard it, and not only you've heard it, I've had people come up and mention it to me. The thing that stands out in my mind about this team is selflessness. Of all the teams I've ever been around, this was, without question, the most unselfish basketball team I've ever been around. They had a genuine affection for one another. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I said the other day at our athletic banquet. There were 700 people there, and I got up, and I said, because I always have to give special comments about the team, and I said this: when I started coaching, I had this burning desire in my heart. I really thought, the greatest thing, there was something about a team. And in cross country, it's a team, golf's a team. There's something about being a part of a team and given to a group for a cause that is beautiful. Now, that's a very idealistic comment. When I was 20, 21 years old, that's how I felt. I still feel that way, thanks to his team. Because over the years, and those of you who are sitting here and have had a few years to live, you know that as you're young, you start off with these lofty goals and the way things are, or you'd like them to be, and then as you go along, it gets tarnished. You find out, hey, that's not necessarily realistic. And so as I've lived my life, and I'm sure many of you can say the same thing, I started out over here as a young coach, and I had this goal about the way it should be, and the way I want it to be, and sharing common goals, and so on. And then as I've gone along, it's been tarnished, and this year came right back to reality. It can be done. Now, I may never be a part of a team like this again, and chances are I won't. But the fact is, it renewed my spirit. It gave me a feeling about it can be done. And that's the greatest thing about this ball club. The other thing that they had that was unbelievable was they had a never-say-die attitude. They were incredible. That didn't make a difference what the score was. They thought they were going to win the game. If you remember, I don't know if you saw this ball game, Georgia Tech, we had a chance to be #1 in the country. We were down 14 at half. I think we got down 16. We came back and won it. We played Missouri. We were down in Missouri, down in the Checker Dome. I don't know, 17 or 18. They're a great team. We came back and won it. We were down to Syracuse, 13 or 14. We came back and won it. And we were down to Indiana at our place by 10 at half. And we thought Nick Anderson was hurt. We came back and won it. We We were down in Indiana by 10 late in the game. We came back. This was an incredible team. It was, I mean, they thought they were going to win every time they went on the floor. It was unbelievable. And those are the two qualities about this team that made it special. Now, athletics, let me just say this. I don't mean to preach to you, but I have to tell you this, that if I would have gotten up here in 1969, when I first started at Barton County and spoken to you, and what I'm going to say today wouldn't be the same thing. Because I've changed my views considerably. And I guess we all do as we grow. So if you're younger, you're sitting here thinking, oh, here we go, we're going to get on another lecture. No, you're not going to get a lecture at all. I'm just going to tell you some things that I see that I think are important for you to consider, because after all, you have to make up your own mind. To me, someplace somebody was talking about dropping an athletic program because it did not, I don't even remember where it was, it didn't coincide with academics. Well, to me, athletics is the greatest classroom in the world. And I was a pretty decent student, but I never learned in any classroom what I learned by playing. It's not even close. It wasn't even close. Now, I'm not against math, and some of you might be math teachers, and it's nice to know math, and you have to know math. But what's really important is how do you deal with your fellow man, getting along with people. Hey, you don't learn that in math class. You just don't learn it. You learn things in athletics that no classroom can ever teach you. How to handle winning, how to handle losing. I mean, I don't care. Biology, sure, it's important. It's not even close. So when they say to me, well, we probably ought to drop the athletic program, somebody is misguided. Now, there are a lot of problems in athletics, granted, and we're going to talk about a few of those today. But there are many more good things than there are bad. First of all, one of the things you learn, that a happy workplace is a productive workplace. Now, we learned that a long time ago. So, have you ever been out at a ball club or a part of a team where people didn't pull in the same direction, and you realize how unproductive it becomes, and you don't even know why you're not producing, and the negative energy? And again, it goes back to this year's team. There was never any negative pull. It was like 10 or 12 guys on a rope all pulling the same direction. But a happy workplace is a productive workplace. And that's one of the things that I've learned from athletics. Because believe me, I've been in some unhappy workplaces. And I probably contributed to some of those unhappy workplaces. And I wasn't that productive. Respect for your fellow man begins obviously with self-respect. That's another thing that you learn through athletics. Kenny Battle, I guess he played in an all-star game last night. Some of you might have seen him play. Never asked for anything, just always trying to pick up the other guy. Nick Anderson, Marcus Lurber, Kendall Gill, Steve Barber, Andy Kaufman. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's just respect for themselves and respect for other people. Tell you another thing you learn, humility. Now, there are a lot of people in athletics who do not qualify for the humility award. In fact, there are more of them than there are the others. But if you want to know about humility, ask Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman last year was the most prolific scorer in basketball in Illinois, the second highest scorer in the history of the state, on his way to becoming a great player, probably a pro player, got a shot at it, and he develops a blood clot. Ask him about humility. Ask him about what kind of year this was for him. A tough one. Hey, here's a guy that, I mean, this guy's getting 35 a game. People are hanging on him, they want to know him, they want to be around. Now he gets a blood clot, and he can't play this year, and, you know, maybe he can't play, I don't know, I think he's going to be able to be okay. But what a year for Andy Kaufman. What a lesson. And you know what? Reporters didn't talk about Andy Kaufman, but see, that's what it's about. Ask Marcus Liberty about humility. Marcus Liberty, #1 high school player in the nation, judged by the experts. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. He's a great player. Ask him how you go from being at the top to down to the bottom, to the top, to the bottom, to the top, to the bottom. He knows. He's a lot smarter now than he was 2 years ago. A lot. You ask if Marcus Liberty were to get up and talk to you today, you would get a different message than you would have gotten when he came out of King High School. Humility. Nick Anderson had to sit out a year. Humility. It's going to hit you sooner or later. Now, it always hits you, and I'm sure in golf it hits you a lot. You're right, it hits me all the time. I'm the only guy in the world in golf, I don't even pick up a driver. I tee up with a 600. I can't even hit a wood. the guy tee off with a 6-iron. So, of course, I know that when I go out to play golf, I'm going to be humble anyway. So, but humility is a great, great, great thing. And the guys and gals that need to have it the most are the ones that are having the most successful. If you're part of a team and you happen to be having the greatest success in that team, that's when you need to be the most humble. And if you can do that, you're going to help that team win. Kenny Battle's a perfect example. Altruism. The giving to a cause with no thought of gain for yourself. Boy, that sounds like that's a great quality. What can I do for you where I don't get anything back? That's a great quality. That's a great quality. We all would like to have more of it, including myself. That's another thing you get out of athletics that you can't get out of anything else. Because we live in a world that, do we ever live in a world that says, get what you can take, get what you can take, get what you can take, get it, take it. And you know, it's really supposed to be just the opposite. And athletics is one of the things that help you do that. It gives you perspective. No other thing do I know of. Give to a cause where I have I don't care. We had guys walk on our team we had a guy named Mike McDonald on our team this year who goes to the Final Four, gets the Final Four ring. They write an article about him in the paper. The guy walks on. He's not even a very good player. He walks on. He spends 2 years with the team. Coach gives him a scholarship. He stays out this year. The guy never plays. He didn't think about it. Really didn't think about himself, and he got a lot out of it. And why don't they write more stories about Mike McDonald? Well, they don't make the press, but those are the kinds of things you get. Very altruistic person. Now, the quality of effort. Now, I'm not going to suggest to you that winning is not important. I mean, obviously, I'd be crazy to do that because if we were 5-31 this year and it made the greatest effort we could make, I could stand up here all day and you guys, you wouldn't even listen to what I'm trying to tell you. But winning and losing are the same thing. They're both outcomes. They're really the same. The only difference is the way it's viewed by the public. They're exactly the same. Now, I know that there have been times when you've done the very best you can where you've lost. And there have been times when you haven't done the best you can that you've won. Now, deep down inside, without worrying about how other people view you, you know deep down inside how you felt. And that's the whole key. I mean, it takes the pressure off if you know you just got to do the best you can. If you don't have to think, well, I got to win this. We got to win this game. You don't have to win anything. All you have to do is the best you can. And coaches that encourage you to do the best you can and don't talk so much about winning and losing are doing you more of a favor than the other guy. You know that as well as I do. They're both outcomes, both imposters, really. Okay, let me just close by saying this. And again, I would have said this 20 years ago, but I've learned some things. The thing that stands out to me, and I hope to you, and you may have to get up here 20 years from now and address a group of people. Not that I'm right, but this is how I view it. The thing that stands out to me about athletic competition, the greatest thing I'm going to take out of this whole thing is the friends that I've made. And if I had to give you some advice, if you were to stand up and say, Coach, how can you help me with my game, or how can you do this, how can you do that? I'd say the most important thing you can have is to be well-rounded, to use athletic competition as part of your life, to enrich your life, but the most important thing that you can do is make friends. Make as many as you can. Make friends. Because if you think winning a golf match or winning a game is going to sustain you 20 years down the road, you're crazy. It's not going to do anything for you. But those friends will. Just like going to the Final Four. Hey, that's forgotten now. You don't think there's pressure on us at Illinois to do well again next year? The minute that season was over, that's forgotten. No one cares now whether we went to the Final Four. They say they do. They really don't. Not the ones that are going to hire you and fire you. That's why friends. It's important to make friends. And what better way to make them than in athletics? What better way than, you're doing well and your buddy's not, and so you give up some of yours to help your buddy, and you know what? That's important because that's going to come back to you 20-fold down the road. Just like John SPEZIA is a good friend. He'll always be a good friend. And I could lose the game, I could be on the bottom, I could be fired, I could call John and go out and have a beer with him and have a good time. Or vice versa. Now to me, that's more important than 31-5 and all the other stuff you can put together. So if I could just suggest one thing, put it in perspective. And If you're not doing well or you're not playing well, don't let it be that big a thing. And if you're doing great and you're on the top and you're all going to be there some, don't let it be that big a thing. Let the other things count. And you'll have a lot better life. You'll enjoy athletics more. You'll get more out of it. You'll be able to give more to it. Thank you very much.
This next introduction is a real pleasure for me. Besides being a pretty good guy, a pretty good golfer, and a long-standing member of the community, I think the best way to sum Joe Springer up, a guy by the name of Joe Brass is a good friend of mine, took his class a few years ago. He's a pretty good golfer now. And he credits all the success that he's had on the golf course because he wasn't a very good golfer before he took the class. He credits Coach Springer with all the success that he's been able to achieve. So, without further ado, Joe Springer.
Thank you, Jim. I certainly want to thank Dick Nagy for coming today. We sure enjoy your talk and taking all your busy time and coming here on a day like this. We sure appreciate you being here and giving us a few words of wisdom. I think that John and I made the wrong schedule. We certainly should have had Dick last. We thought maybe he'd kind of like to leave maybe or something, but it's kind of a hard act to follow, to get up here and follow a speaker like Dick just made an example of here. First of all, what I'd like to do here, and I got a lot of thank yous to give as athletic director and head of the athletics at Dam Area Community College. I'd like to first of all thank the administration of our school for backing our athletics. And we don't have a lot of administration here. We have a few here. But the reason we don't is we're having an open house at the junior college today. And hopefully if we get down with our banquet today, I would like to invite everybody to drop in at the junior college on their way home and see the open house of our new facilities. And that's the reason some of our top administrators aren't here. I'd like to mention Sue Murphy, our Dean of Students, who is my direct boss in administration. I'd like to thank her for everything that she has done in the way of helping us in athletics. And by the way, she's leaving Dam Area College. I'd like to wish her good luck next year also in her new endeavor down south, where I like to see where it's nice and warm all year round. I'd also like to make a comment about our master ceremony today, Jim Mccarthy. Jim is our Booster Club president, and we've had a Booster Club for 5 or 6 years now, I think, John. And by the way, Dick Nagy was one of the people instrumental in helping us with our Booster Club to start out with. I can remember about 5 or 6 years ago him coming over, and we had a little meeting in the conference room, and he told us about booster clubs and his experience with them, and so we really have to thank him for really getting us started out. But Jim has been our president the last year, and I think he's really got our booster club rolling. He's a can-do man, and he really feels that everything can be done, and because of that, he's kind of inspired some of us booster club members, and we're getting a few things done. We're starting to get a little money in the budget. And in a few years, we're going to have a real thriving booster club, I really think, because of Jim Mccarthy, our president. So I want to thank you, Jim. And of course, along with this, we have a lot of workers in the booster club that really help us out. Louise Slazak, our treasurer. Nobody ever hears about people like this, but she takes care of, golly, not all the money, but everything, it seems like. Whenever we have something to be done, well, she's there and doing it. And she's one of the doers behind the scenes, so I would certainly like to thank her. In respect to our basketball program, I'd like to thank about 4 people here. 2 of them are coaches, and 2 of them are just people at the school. Lois Wilcoxon, Tony Wantlin, Jim Heron, and Terry Hill. These people are our workers at basketball games. And the reason I bring this up is they've got just a fantastic record, and I can't thank them enough for being so dedicated to what they're doing for us. They keep